Welcome to the No More Late Fees podcast. I'm Jackie.
And I'm Danielle, and we're just two best friends and ex-Blockbuster employees rewatching some of the best and worst movies from the late 90s and early 2000s. This week, we are talking about the 1998 American sports comedy, BASEketball, with our friend Ron. Welcome, Ron.
Hello. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you on.
We are.
If you want to get to know Ron a little bit better, pause and make sure you go check out his trailer. We'll wait, no worries. But before we dive in, let's get into some housekeeping. I thought that was perfect.
It was all right.
You guys nailed it.
Did we?
I think so. I felt like I should have been involved with that too. I was like, I didn't know it was coming.
If you love the podcast and you want to support us, here's a few ways you can.
Did you know writing a review and or rating us helps us to get more listeners? And we actually have a review this week talking about good movies with better people. That's us.
Mm-hmm.
5-star from Apple Podcast. So here's a fun fact. A few years ago, I was asked to come and co-host a podcast with a friend. The only slight problem is that I absolutely hated podcasts. This is going well so far.
Mm-hmm.
Despise them, in fact. Oh, even better. Hosting one was great fun, but I always felt super guilty about how I absolutely never listened to one. A few months go by and I happen across No More Late Fees. Almost everything I usually dislike about podcasts simply isn't there. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Now I'm worried.
I
want to know what the thing is.
I do too.
They're just like, we just dislike ADHD coaches and we hear them on podcasts all the time.
The hosts have a natural chemistry, great film taste, and even better senses of humor. Even if they get lost in some absolute hilarity along the way, they find a clear way back to the topic without ever skipping a beat. That's my job.
Yeah.
If you ever step foot in a real-life blockbuster, this is the pod for you. If you've only ever known Netflix, you're not cool, we can't be friends, and you need this pod for your education. That's a really nice and ringing endorsement. Thanks, Rob, from Every Movie Ever co-host.
Our wonderful pod pals who their podcast is great. They are from
Pond.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that. But definitely should check out their podcast. Love them. Thank you so much for the kind words. It really made me teary-eyed a little bit. Just I love getting good reviews.
Yeah. And if you want to be featured, leave us a review and we will swoon over it.
Yes, unless it's bad, then I'm coming to find you. And don't forget to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform to make sure that you get wonderful alerts when new episodes are live.
And if you want to support us further, head on over to patreon.com/nomorelateFees and sign up to be a Patreon bestie. You'll get some behind the scenes, some cut footage, Spotify playlists that are culled from my Burned Aughts playlists. So check us out over there.
Let's get into this Turner Classic movie.
It's great. It's great.
When slacker friends Joe Cooper and Doug Remer are challenged to a pickup basketball game against some jocks, they counter by proposing to play a game they learned called BASEketball, which combines basketball and baseball. Clever name. In reality, they are improvising all the rules, but somehow the sport becomes a hit. A promoter forms a popular league, but after his death, a rival owner wants to change the rules to increase profits. The movie stars Trey Parker, Matt Stone, Yasmine Bleeth, Jenny McCarthy, Robert Vaughn, Ernest Borgnine, Dian, Bachar, I hope. And it was directed by David Zucker. And you can watch it on Stars, Hulu, Amazon.
You have to pay for it. It's not free anymore.
Oh, yes.
I thought I watched for free on Amazon.
Did you?
Yeah. Maybe I bought it. I don't know. Listen, I just click add to cart all the time,
Right.
so maybe it's just a thing.
Anyway, I don't even know how I watched it partially. So, but
It's my favorite sports movie of all time.
It
Okay,
is,
Here,
according to
Danielle.
your ranking in the trailer.
Well, before we get started, let's get into our ratings rewind.
So you know the drill. Before we get into the movie, we'll reveal the rating our Y2K versions of ourselves would give. Then at the end, we'll see if our current selves agree with their initial rating. Our scale consists of would buy it again,
The best would play and repeat.
5-day rental,
Would watch again.
2-day rental,
Okay, but nothing to write home about.
and same-day rental.
This movie trash. That's it. That's all I got to say.
I think 15-year-old Ron would absolutely buy it. I think 15-year-old Ron did buy it, actually. Or at least rented it over and over again.
15, 16-year-old Danielle, I guess that's how we were when this came out. I'm not sure. It's a same-day rental. I believe one of the guys in our group made us watch this shit. And not impressed. Jackie?
Not only did I own the VHS, I own the soundtrack to this movie.
Of course. Well, the soundtrack is a whole nother thing.
Especially, well, we'll get into that later, but the Trey Parker renditions of songs are phenomenal.
Tell us about the box office.
Okay.
Danielle, you look super stoked to do this movie. Let's go.
It's going to be a hilarious ride, I'll tell you that. I got things to say.
Did you take notes?
In my brain. The movie had The movie had a budget of $25 million. And it made $7 million worldwide.
Wow.
This is the definition of a flop. BASEketball was in its flop era.
Wow.
Yeah. It was released on July 31st, 1998, and it opened alongside. Now, I do have to say, the movies that it came up against, just wait. It was a slaughterhouse. The Parent Trap, Lindsay Lohan's version, The Negotiator, and Ever After. It had no chance.
No, yeah, it was screwed from the get-go.
Yeah. And it was also Saving Private Ryan was number one. So, like, there was nowhere to go. Just nowhere to go.
I feel like this was a movie that got rented a lot, though.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it did not do well in theaters, but I think movies like this don't. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You guys would know better than I would.
Sometimes they do get like a cult following, and then it just, but I think it has a very niche following, and it didn't get like a cult status. I think a lot of people rented it at the time because, remember, this is the height of South Park. I think they had only done one season. So I think the more that show got popular, the more curiosity maybe.
Right. Yeah. Because it wasn't, I think they even said they thought they were doing, I think, like South Park, like promos and stuff during this because they had thought South Park would be canceled by the time they did this.
Yeah. So they were like, let's get that
some
money.
Yeah.
But this movie was on heavy rotation on Comedy Central. I do remember that. Mm-hmm. The Los Angeles Times, Jack Matthews, labeled the film as sleep-inducing and by far the most inane and badly written of the comedies made by any of the creators of the classic 1980 send-up Airplane. Our boy Lil Raj at the Chicago Sun-Times, aka Roger Ebert, he echoed this sentiment in his negative review, giving the film 1.5 stars out of 4 and saying the film tries to buy laughs with puerile shocks. Damn. And in response to a negative review from Roger, Parker and Stone named South Park's second season's 11th episode, Roger Ebert should lay off the fatty foods.
Dang.
Parker and Stone also reference BASEketball's negative reception in South Park's season 8 episode, The Passion of the Jew. I don't even like to just say Jew that way, but I'm just saying the name. Sorry, I apologize. Wow.
I will say that Trey Parker and Matt Stone, I hope I got their names right. I always like get the first name with the wrong last name. I mean, they have cis het white man energy. Like, they are not afraid to say whatever the fuck they want, do whatever they want with zero ramifications.
They don't care who they offend.
They don't. Mm-hmm. And I kind of appreciate that they're equal opportunity offenders. And then there are certain points in this movie where they point out like
terrible
colonialism.
Thing. Like, yeah, no, there was times where both Gwen and I were watching, and it was like, well, they're not wrong. Like, I don't know. It was like, but then like a half second later, it's like, and that's really fucking offensive.
Yeah,
right.
Even for probably the late 90s, there might have been some moments where you're like uncomfortable because it's like, this is. But I don't, especially now, this movie doesn't hold up. But you know,
yeah. This is like the first and only project that the two of them have worked on that they did not write. So, I think there's a lot of them in it besides like starring, but like they did a lot of improv, and they gave a lot of ideas to the writer and director. So there is a lot of their aura in it.
I feel like some of the best parts are the ones that have like been noted as the improv scenes where they do the whole like Star Trek in the hospital scene. They're like quoting Star Trek to one another. That was all improv, and it just had a different feel to it. And you could see like they were completely enjoying themselves.
Right.
Where everything else kind of felt forced, and they knew like these jokes were not landing, but they signed the contract. So
right. Yeah.
I honestly think the movie would have been better had they written it themselves.
Agreed.
And they should have just rewrote it. But again, they were in a different position when this came out. They weren't the guys who went in dresses to the Academy Awards. They didn't have the longest running, one of the longest running TV shows of all time on, you know.
I think it wasn't until like Team America where they're like, oh, these dudes kind of know what they're doing. And
Team America was written by them, right?
Yes.
Did they? I haven't seen it since it came out. I'm sure y'all have watched it. No,
I've never seen Team America.
Really?
Those puppets creep me the fuck out. They look like the
they're
scary
creepy, but like I feel like even with that too, it's a lot of like pointing out things, making a joke, but being self-aware. And there was a little bit of that in this. Like there was times I was like, at least it feels like they're self-aware of it.
Yeah.
And so it's I don't know, they're making fun of themselves, but then also it's just, I feel like they just missed the mark on a lot of things. But there were so many quotable things that aren't offensive that I've said that I just feel like I still have to, support my number one favorite sports comedy of all time. So. But yeah.
I do think it's interesting from a casting standpoint that they were not the first choice, that Zucker wanted Chris Farley to play the lead role.
Right.
And he actually turned them down. So that's what ended up getting Parker and Stone, because South Park was huge at the time. And I also wonder what would this movie have been if he was the lead.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been what it is, for sure.
No.
That wasn't his kind of comedy. And they also brought on Squeaks. I don't know the actor's name, so you might have to grab that for me.
I feel bad that like the premise of this character of like laughing at him is that he's just this small petite man who they just keep making fun of and degrading.
Terrible. Yeah.
It had heavyweights energy. Like
he
can't do anything about it. It's who he is as a person. Like you can't.
But also and like I was telling Gwen this, and this would be why I would knock it down maybe from my favorite sports comedy of all time, is one of the criteria that I said is like, does it hold up from like sports sense? And just looking at it, like, he would be such a liability. Like, if we're to at least believe that these two guys, you know, didn't have jobs and just shot hoops all day and played video games, there's a chance they would be good at basketball, at least shooting.
Mhm.
Although Trey Parker's shot is offensive. That's the most offensive part of this movie, the way he throws a basketball. But if we're to believe at least that, like, hey, these dudes play basketball and shoot every day, then there's a chance, like, sure, they could make the shots that they're making as often as they are. But Squeaks, no way. Like, he's a lot. Why? How is he the third player on the team? They have 3 other dudes on the bench. You're telling me not one of them could shoot better than this guy?
He was ride or die. He didn't turn off their gas, and they are loyal. As much as they like to pick on him, they're loyal to him. But I think the only thing that really made me laugh before I dozed was when he was in the jacuzzi.
Yeah.
And then he's like, hey guys, what's up, guys? And then they just literally put a fucking mannequin in there, and you just see it like swirling. That was the only thing that made me laugh.
Going to like what Roger said about the shock value, we were literally watching it, just going like, it's joke after joke after physical comedy after slapstick after in your face after shock value in like a 10-second span, and it's just quantity over quality for sure. The amount of jokes in this movie is outrageous, to where it's just like firing them at you, and you're like, do you like any of them? Does any of them hit? Oh, that one, good. But
it feels like a writer's room.
Yes, it was like you didn't have time to digest anything, because it was just like on to the next thing. And like sometimes like one-liners, that's great, because you're like, oh, that was funny, I'm gonna use that. But then like you get like not only shocking the kid with the paddles, but then Squeaks is getting
that was
shot,
such
like,
an uncomfortable scene too.
And
like it was broken up by that one thing, but
yeah.
Oh man.
It was okay.
The only thing I was excited about, and this is going to be pretty funny, was that I was like, oh wow, it's so cool to have like Jenny McCarthy and Yasmine Bleeth in the same movie. But then I was confusing Yasmine Bleeth with Carmen Electra, and I was like, it's like 2 powerhouses, but I was wrong.
Speaking of power, there are so many cameos from sports commentators in this movie. It is crazy. And I did hear, I think it wasn't Al Michaels. Who was the other one?
It's Bob Costas.
Yeah, Bob Costas says that he gets approached still to this day with people just saying to him, like, you're excited, feel these nipples. And he's like, and I will never like get away from that. Like my kids, like I'm with my kids and that happens. I was like, yeah, that's me. And like,
it's like crazy they're in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Trey. It was, gosh, I wrote some of them down because I was just like, unbelievable that they're in it. But yeah, it's Kenny Mayne and Dan Patrick and Bob Costas, Al Michaels. Just, I mean, ESPN's like premier sports like all of them are in it. So that's pretty fun too. And then Reggie Jackson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and it's insane.
And then you get Robert Stack from Unsolved Mysteries.
He was really funny.
He was, and I'm like, he is so serious. Like, you know him as this really serious dude, and then you think, okay, there's the first bit, cool. What's his face is missing, and then it like comes back a couple more times. I'm like, how many? Like, this guy actually has a role. It's not just a cameo at this point.
I think it's crazy that the amount of money that Al Michaels and Bob made from this movie. So I guess Al Michaels found out that Bob was making $50,000, while Michaels agreed originally for $15,000. But when he found out that Bob was making 50, he went back and they gave him 60 so that like he would be making more than Bob. But that's a lot of money.
Yeah, especially then, for sure. Like just cameos.
They sat behind a desk for like a couple hours, shot all their scenes, and then they were like,
They said some stuff that is not there, like talking about unmasking. What was the one thing about where he said it's hard to believe that only 5 years ago this game was being played in driveways, and then he goes, and it's hard to believe that those girls 5 years ago those girls were in grade school, and we're like,
yeah.
wow, that's a $50,000 line right there.
Yeah. To get your lawyer ready.
There's I want to know if it bothered anybody else that I don't think that anybody dressed like the preppy guys did in the beginning when they were like, they had sweat. Do people really wear sweaters around their necks?
No.
We went to a pretty affluent high school, and
maybe they did when they were older, right?
I take that back. I'm pretty sure there were a couple of girls in high school that wore their sweaters like that.
But it's like they were growing up in the 80s and that's what they would wear.
Right. That's fair.
It was not
like a yuppie look more than
a
90s look.
But I don't think anybody was wearing that in 98, 97.
No. I thought that might have been a little off. But yeah, I feel like up until that scene of the movie, especially if we take out Brittany's mom's room scene, that there was still potential at that point for this to be like a good movie.
Like talking about the first 5 minutes. And then it just went downhill.
I feel like there's so many redeeming parts where I'm like, well, that like little bit is pretty good in a vacuum. You could really make this a really awesome 10-minute movie, I think, if we just like,
if it was a short, yeah.
This is an SNL skit, and I think we've got something.
Yes.
Or at least Mad TV.
Yeah.
Let's paint the picture for the audience. So we open up, it's the late 70s. We're at a baseball game with 2 kids who are best friends, and Reggie Jackson is at the plate. Coop catches the ball, and then it kind of merges to present day football. And they said because of the excessive celebrating where we get the river dance scene, stadiums are promoting products just from it, which is true. Like,
all of it is still true.
Our name, I mean, I really liked the like Kotex Stadium, and it had a blimp shaped like a tampon. I really did enjoy that.
It's like Preparation H, and they had the like, that's funny. Yeah.
And then they said like they kept changing cities because they were offered more money to go play in different cities. Still true. The Raiders are in Vegas now.
And it was so funny, like, we still use this line all the time where it's like, and the Lakers moved from Minneapolis to Los Angeles where there are no lakes. And the Jazz moved from New Orleans to Salt Lake City where music is outlawed. And that is hysterical. And it's still them like shitting on, Mormons, which they love to do.
Yes.
And it was exactly what that is.
Yeah, what is that about? Like, why do they have such a thing about Mormons? Does anybody know like where that comes from?
I don't know. I wonder
like
if
hyper.
Yeah, I mean the Book of Mormon, which is incredible. Like,
it's so good.
Yeah, like, so I don't know. And I mean Orgasmo is about a Mormon, so
yeah, we gotta do some research and find what that's about.
Yeah. But like those lines are fantastic, and it really sets you up for disappointment. After that.
It really does. Because the whole premise is like no one's going to sporting events anymore. The player pool has been diluted. They're getting like just anyone off the street. They're combining games, which is what this whole movie is about. So they make fun of it.
Yeah.
Yet
they do it.
They do it.
Yeah.
It's not like they come up with a whole new game. It's literally just combining horse and with baseball scoring. So then we meet, what's the other guy's name? We meet Cooper and
Remer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We meet Cooper and Remer as adults. They're going to this girl Brittany's party. This whole scene was stupid anyway. Like they could have just walked up to people on a basketball court.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like she's going away, and he literally says, "We're here because I want to fuck her." I'm like, "Sir, your hair, do something."
Like, it doesn't look like you're trying to. But,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, what is that hairstyle? Like, it's bleached and fried, and it looks like you cut it with a bowl, and then it like touched one of those balls and just like it floated out.
It's so bad. It's so bad. And it doesn't get better.
It does
It
not.
doesn't get better.
So, yes, we get the unfortunate scene in Brittany's mom's room where they're sniffing her undies and licking her dildo. Yeah,
It
you
was
heard
like-
that right.
I was like,
And drinking out of a bidet. Like, let's not forget they
Yes.
drank out of a
Oh.
bidet as well.
but when he was licking the fake dick, I couldn't think
The
of what it
vibrator.
The vibrator.
Vibrator.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fake dick.
He was still licking it when he saw her come in the room.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't even stop
Mm-mm.
until, and then the way that she said it, because like you wouldn't say, "Why are you in my mom's room?" Because we met her dad downstairs. You would normally say, "Why are you in my parents' room?"
Yeah.
Right.
But she had to say,
And she
"Mom," for
didn't
it to-
look that upset either.
No.
Which was
No.
weird. Just not great acting from, I mean, if we're gonna talk about that, from anyone besides, honestly, I think Squeaks was a phenomenal actor.
He was.
I thought he did a really great job. But
Especially when he did that scene in the
in the which part?
Of the hot tub.
hot tub.
I thought his scene at the end, Danielle, you didn't see this. At the end, she did fantastic when he was in the pineapple suit.
Yes.
And he,
Danielle,
brilliant.
you missed that scene.
Did I?
It was
There's some, I keep telling you, there's some redeeming qualities in this movie. I want you to go listen.
I'm
after
gonna
this,
go
you
back.
go
I'm gonna
watch
go
it.
back.
Text me, let me know what you think. But especially
hit
that
him
scene.
up
I think
on Threads.
Yeah.
And start
Thread me.
a hem.
Knit me a sweater and it'll be great.
So then we get the basketball bet. It's the jocks versus these two dudes. They don't ever have jobs, do they?
No,
They don't.
no.
And the reason why they even come up to like wanting to not, the guys challenge them to a one-on-one basketball game. And then they say they're betting money. The reason that they're not even wanting to play is because they know that they can't beat them on one-on-one,
Mm-hmm.
and they have no money.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like making shit up as they go of this new game. I don't know why these guys go along with this, because they're just making up rules as they're playing.
They try to sell us on the fact that the girls think that they're like, it's more manly, that they're gonna like beat them at whatever game it is. Like, that's the vibe I think they're giving off. Like, and even saying, which is weird because I don't know any girl that like is that. But when they were like, "Oh, you're not big sports guys, huh?" And they like look at the girls, and the girls like look at them like, "You're not big sports guys," and they're, like, "No, we could do whatever you want," and it's like attacking their fragility of like ego,
which is,
I pride myself on being in a relationship with a guy who could care less about sports. I never have to sit on Sunday and watch football. It's the best.
yeah, I don't get it.
It's weird. And so with that scene too, right? And maybe this is kind of throughout the whole movie, another issue that I have when we talk about like rules of the game. But like psych outs, right? You can say whatever to make the other person miss, except you can't say a gay joke, which they show in one of the scenes because you get flagged for that. Yeah. But you can say whatever else you want. And
squirt things.
Also,
yeah.
Spit on them and squirt.
Assault.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Except when he hit them with the board and then he got in trouble for that.
Yeah.
But like, it's like, how is that? What? Why not then just every time just have like squirt guns in their eyes? Like, good luck
like
making a
hot
shot.
sauce in your eye. Here you go.
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's weird.
Or how ridiculous it is that if I'm shooting a shot and you can say something to me that makes me like fall over and throw the ball or like
every time. It's not even just like I make the shot, but I'm distracted so it doesn't go in the basket. It's like they fall forward. I'm like, why are all these men falling down?
Or then they'll be like, oh.
Yeah.
I just want to know what direction the director gave each time for this shit.
Was there a director? Was it? It looks like they gave them an idea and they just said go.
I think I messed up. The guy who plays Squeak, I said that his name was Dian Bachar, but I guess it should be Dian or something.
Is that
Not
I didn't know? I don't
Diane.
know his name. He hasn't been in much.
Do you want to say it again?
No, I think it's funnier this way.
Okay.
I do too. We can just
I when I was looking up something for this movie, he looks very different now.
He does.
He has like silver hair. It's a vibe, but he also kind of looks like DJ Qualls. He gives me that vibe.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah, like if
I'm
you
like
just
looking
like
it up.
Google his name, like the first picture that pops up from Getty Images.
What's his name again? I'm just
Dian-
Googling Squeaks. And it's not
Dian Bachar.
Dian
Dian.
Bachar. Oh wow. Yeah, I mean, he's in his 50s, so
Yeah.
crazy. Just that's something.
So now we're back at their house. They're playing BASEketball. And then this is when we meet Squeak. His real name is Kenny. Shocking.
Also funny, yeah.
And he's there to turn off their gas because they haven't paid, because they have no jobs. And then he's like, is your dog in the yard? And they're like, no, it's fine. And then it's a fucking Rottweiler that attacks him. And then and they always call him bitch or little bitch. It's even when like they are in the National Basketball League.
His nickname, yeah.
It is. Like,
and his first name is Squeaks. They don't even they say Squeaks little bitch Scolari. And it's just
it's sad.
Or like the part when he like, oh sorry, continue.
No,
Go
you're
ahead,
fine. We jump all over the place. Please.
when he's in there and they're just like, yeah, it's because you're a little bitch. And then he's just like, you guys are always ragging on me. If you do that 13 or 14 more times, I'm gonna leave. And it's just that's funny.
Yeah. I did enjoy that part because you do have people like that where like you're like, why are you friends with them?
Right.
They just give you shit. And it's just like, oh, like it's always just an excuse. So of course we get Squeaks. He does make a bet with them. He loses, but then he gets fired from the gas company and has to move in. And he's like, okay, well, does this couch pull out? And they say, no, that's the dog's bed. And then like give him the dog's bed to sleep in, which is a cardboard box with a beach towel. And he's just like, okay.
No, he's not. He's like, this is fucked up.
Yeah,
this is
but
crazy.
He still does it.
He still does
it. Like picking up the towel, like he's not saying no.
And the dog fucking jumps through the window and attacks him.
They do a lot of rules of 3 in this movie, and they come back to it, but they never came back to the dog, which I was disappointed in.
They did not.
Because there's been times where, like with the Jenny McCarthy joke about the like sexual innuendos, they did it twice, and then at the end of the movie, they didn't even say it, but they like showed her how she like sucked the chrome off of his tailgate. And
for some reason, I really thought that was clever with the silver lips. I don't know why.
It's because of that. It's the rule of 3, and they didn't say it. Like the first one where it was like, I'm gonna have you lay some carpet if you know what I mean. And then she's laying carpet. And then it's like, go buffer my, lobby if you know what I mean. And they do that. And then an hour later, she's just holding the thing and there's
The
just
trailer
crumb on her
hitch.
lips. It's
Yeah.
so funny. Like I think that kind of stuff to me, like that's subtle, is why this is the greatest comedy sports movie of all time. But right before that scene too, they were talking about, and I never got this as a kid, and it's because there was nothing to get, right? Like, you watch some movies sometimes, you're like, oh, but they keep going like Steve Perry. And I was like, why is that a psych out? And then like later on, I heard this time watching it when he was like walking away, he was like, come on, dude, we said no more Journey psych outs. It's like, I just can't think of anything. And like, then they used Steve Perry again for Squeaks, and then the joke, it was just like, we've got nothing, and it doesn't matter, I think.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. We as friends now, when I talk about things that we still say, like when we were playing beer pong in college, we'd go like Steve Perry, and no fucking idea why, but we did
it. We do see the popularity of basketball growing in the neighborhood. There's a ton of people watching them play. Coop cuts up the lazy boy to create a basketball. And they want us to believe, number one, he made a basketball out of a lazy boy. And number two, he welded together a scoreboard.
They have skills. They're a
lot of DIY going on.
A lot of potential, just not, execution.
They're ADHDers, lots of potential, and they just can't get it together, right?
And I do really like so Ted Denslow shows up, played by Ernest Borgnine.
Fantastic.
I was like, why is he in this movie?
Everybody need to check. But we have to remember that this is the guy, one of the guys behind Airplane. I think that's why a lot of people said yes to this. And then also knowing that these two were blowing up from South Park. So people were like, okay, this is going to be a hit. It will,
Plot
I don't know why.
Narrator, it wasn't.
He shows up and he's talking to Coop about starting the National Basketball League. And he says, kids these days have the attention span measured in nanoseconds. And I'm like,
this is still accurate today.
Yeah. So it isn't the cell phones then, huh?
It's not.
Wow. It's the same as people going like, no one wants to work these days. And they've been saying it for like 2 centuries.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Darcy, founder of Spirit.
And I'm Kelly, the Chief Technical Officer of Spirit.
Back in 2011, we formed the Supernatural Paranormal Investigations and Research Institute, searching for answers to mysterious things that were happening in our little corner of Canada.
And we haven't stopped searching for those answers ever since. Join us on our podcast, Canadian Spirit, as we dive into all of Canada's most famous and forgotten paranormal mysteries. Examine the evidence and try to figure out what might be behind Canada's ghosts, cryptids, and UFO encounters.
In Canadian Spirit, you'll get a peek behind the curtain and see for yourself what being a paranormal investigator is really like, and learn something about Canadian history, which isn't as boring as it sounds.
Even if it is, we're a pair of chuckle fucks, so we'll do our best to make it entertaining.
So come along for the ride and discover for yourself what makes the land of maple and hockey so wonderfully weird.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, wherever you find your podcasts. And remember,
raccoons are aliens, werewolves are perverts, and ghosts are just downright rude sometimes.
Back to basketball.
God,
Let's do it.
Do we have to?
But it's the best part of the whole movie. Real Big Fish shows up.
Oh,
Real Big Fish.
The end
So
credits,
great.
we got there already.
No, they show up. They are performing at
One of the games?
Yeah, one of the games. The first.
They've done a
in
couple. They
Waveview.
come back a couple times. But
They
yeah.
do. And it's at this point I text message
Nick.
our friend Nick. I said, I have to watch BASEketball and I'm terrified. And then I said, I forgot Real Big Fish is in this. And he said, in all caps, that's its only redeeming quality. And then I don't know why I forgot that, because I mean, most of the soundtrack are just is Real Big Fish
Yes.
and covers by
It's a
Real Big
ska.
Fish. So yeah. So I was very happy at that point. And now it's 5 years into the league. Squeak is still a little bitch. Their team is called the Beers. I feel like we could have been a little more creative.
Oh, for sure.
Mhm.
Especially considering all the other team names were far more creative than the Beers. Some were borderline
Offensive.
offensive, but more
Shout out to the
creative.
San Francisco Fairies.
Right.
And then
What
we get
was
like
going on there?
no, but like the whole thing with the fairies is we, instead of women cheerleaders, we get men cheerleaders.
The second
Mhm.
that came on, I have to say, Gwen was like, finally. And she was just like, we're just, objectifying women. And then like 5 seconds later, she goes, oh, wait, this is to make fun of gay people.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I was like, yeah.
But then he comes and says, we can't do gay jokes. And I'm like, but this whole team is one giant gay joke.
Yeah.
It's a like you said, they are self-aware, and
Yeah.
it's almost like a joke within a joke and offense.
They were like, maybe we can do this without offending, but it didn't work.
You did not. What are the highlights of this? Oh, we meet Yvette, played by Jenny McCarthy. She is married to Ted, who is the owner of the beer. I thought he was the owner of the whole league.
So it's super weird because he technically is, but also the owner of the beers. And I think the way that they've made this, because they talked about like the bylaws and why none of them are making money. And so I sat there and, again, putting this in like, if real world terms, they're not getting paid. It's just about the like, I don't know, the glory, right? Because they said that in the beginning. You got to figure, though, these owners had to put in money.
Right.
And obviously they're upset they're not making money, but like, why are there just billionaire owners then? Wouldn't then anybody be? I don't know. It gets weird, but I think that it's also, and then I wanted to add this before I forget, is like, if you've got these teams where anybody could be in it, like, why are we picking only major cities? Like, it would have been really great to have some like random cities.
And just men. Why is it a male-only league? Women can shoot baskets. What? Like, it's hard? I think
I'm surprised.
I think women would have an unfair advantage because you just flash every man and then you're distracted. That
would have been a better joke than the San Francisco Fairies, to have the men as the cheerleaders with women as the players.
Yes.
Yeah.
But another interesting thing that maybe only I would pick up on, but they're in Milwaukee, is like, they didn't talk about it, but like, it's kind of like the Milwaukee Brewers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the beers. And they both grew up in New York because they were at a Yankee game when Reggie Jackson hit the home run, and like, none of that was talked about, and that bothers me so fucking much. Like, why are they living in Milwaukee now?
The game was at a Yankees game. It was at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, it was Yankee Stadium, and they were Yankee fans, and Reggie like shows up at the end too, and it's like, that would be weird that Reggie Jackson specifically shows up there, and like, I don't know, there's so many things that make, obviously the movie can kind of make zero sense, but there's so many things that don't check out where I'm like, man, this was not thought out well, which is also disappointing.
Yeah, because if we go through the movie, so the whole premise of the movie is these two dudes that don't have jobs create this game, but are not monetarily profiting off of
at all
this game that they created. And then the subplot is that there is an owner that wants to, because the whole thing about Cooper is like he wanted to maintain the integrity of the game. He didn't want any advertising or endorsements or anything that would kind of get in the way of the spirit of the game. Well, then you have this other owner that wants to monetize the sport. And so he's trying to, so long story short, Ted dies.
You
We'll
need
get to that in a minute.
There's bylaws that say that you need a majority, or you need like the other people to vote yes for them to open things up and get sponsors and whatever. And so this other guy is looking at the owner of the Bears as the bottleneck from that happening. So obviously when he dies, now he's looking at Cooper as being the thing that he has to overcome so that he can make the money. He wants the team because Cooper actually gets the team from
in the will.
So if he doesn't, I think he has a certain amount of time that they have to win their world champion or whatever ship for it not to revert
plot.
back.
Now we have a plot.
Yeah.
Kind of. So so Ted dies at a game. He chokes on a hot dog.
And he didn't have to die. When he's doing compressions or whatever.
You're just like, wow, someone grabbed the hot dog.
The hot dog is coming at
thousands of people watching. Someone do something. So uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable. And then they have, which I kind of enjoyed, because like I've been at baseball game where it's like, here's this bobblehead of a random player, enjoy, and it's like, come for bobblehead night, or come for like
and this one was
superhero cape
wasn't
night.
a dozen egg night?
Yeah, and so everyone had dozen egg, and because the Bears lost, they just start chucking eggs at them. And then there's another
What an unfortunate thing to happen on dozen egg night. Dude, some of these jokes are good.
They are. And then like there's another scene where it's chicken night, and they're like literally everyone
free range chicken.
Yes.
Free range chicken.
And they're sitting in the stands with chickens. And then the
so
kid's
many
like,
chickens.
Can you sign my chicken? And I'm like,
know how
that's funny.
On the show, I always push and speak about the lack of diversity in some of these movies. I will say that this is one of the movies where it's totally okay that there is very little diversity in it from Black people in it.
Definitely, sure. There was, I think Kareem was the only Black person in this movie.
And I'm fine with that, because
Reggie, yes.
I'm a true believer. And I told Jackie this, white people have culture too. And they can have their own things.
If this is our culture, that's really sad.
When Black people say stop appropriating our shit, go make your shit. This is it. This is the white people shit that we're talking about. You can have it. We don't want it.
But there was a lot of other diversity in this movie where they just made fun of it.
Yes.
Like there was so much, like, what was that was the Felons. It was the Dallas Felons. What was the Miami team? That was, well, at first they had them cooking the chicken in the dugout, and just terrible. I forget now, because I think I didn't write notes for that part. I just was like, I'm done with this.
Here we go. I have the list. Are you ready?
Of teams. Yeah, let's hear it.
Dallas Felons, Detroit Lemons. That's funny.
Yeah.
Like a car being a lemon.
And all the guys had like the plumber's cracks, like when they bent over, the Detroit Lemons, because they were all like mechanics, I guess.
Los Angeles Riots.
Not funny.
No, and there was a lot of racism in that whole bit too.
Nope.
Here it is, the Miami Dealers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Milwaukee Beers. New Jersey Informants.
There was that was pretty funny. Listen, as someone born in New Jersey, it's really funny to make fun of people from New Jersey. So
I say that all the time. I have
It's
a blast. I'm so sorry that New Jersey's on your birth certificate, by the way.
It's okay. I am too. No, I have some love for New Jersey, but not a ton. It's
I
weird.
love their diners. They
That's
have
fair.
great
Yeah, yeah.
diners.
Yeah.
Great diners.
Sure.
They gave us
Beautiful
Kevin
gowns.
Smith, so I can't be
There you go.
completely mad.
Sure.
There's some really beautiful parts of the state, but not where I'm from.
As for the Kevin Smith, it's like a clock. It could be right twice a
Yeah,
day.
for sure. Yeah, me and Kevin Smith. That's what you get from New
Exactly.
Jersey. It's
Quality.
We have the Roswell aliens. That was
lame.
funny.
yeah, it was weird. Was that they had anal probe night?
Yes.
Was what they were giving.
Which was a South Park reference.
Yes. Yeah. Lots of South Park references.
Lots of South Park
Mhm.
references. San Antonio Defenders and their whole, like, even instead of like it being a house that the basketball hoop is mounted on, it was the Alamo.
Mm.
And then the San Francisco Ferries. Yikes.
Fantastic. Which I feel like there should have been more teams, because when they showed the playoffs and it was like 9 months of playoffs, which is funny,
yeah.
but also ridiculous. Yeah. If you think and again, like, these are all major sports teams. I think they missed a real opportunity to not have this be like neighborhoods in different states,
Yes.
right? Like really small towns that no one's heard of would totally make sense for not making any money from this. Like, what city would build a stadium that wasn't going to make any money?
Right.
Like,
So after Ted dies, like immediately after Ted dies,
yeah,
they're in the locker room celebrating. The other team is in the locker room celebrating the win, while the guy is like, oh, we're real sad about Ted.
they're celebrating.
All of the celebration is happening around him. I also did really like that they got loser shirts.
And hats too.
And
It said
hats.
losers. So good. Brilliant. I would love if they did that in real life.
I would too. Instead of making like so-and-so Super Bowl champions, like just have winners jerseys and losers jerseys, and that's what you go out wearing.
And you have to. Like,
And
it's the rule. If you're gonna play, you have to sign something. You're gonna wear a loser's hat on the way out. Oh God.
And what's the opposite of going to Disney? Like, what's the worst place you could send? Because like the losers should also
New Jersey. Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
You get to go to the Jersey Shore. Have fun.
I'm going to Atlantic City.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's great.
So now Coop is coming out. We are introduced, or he's exiting the locker room at the end of the game, and we meet Jenna Reed, Yasmine Bleeth. She works for Dreams Come True, which, as she puts it, supports health challenged and survival impaired children.
Survival impaired is so funny.
Oh my
it's so terrible. Oh man.
And then, so they ask him for autographs, and they're like, yeah, the other locker room is really crowded, so we figured we'd come over here. Mm-hmm. And then he goes to throw his BASEketball to a kid, and he's like, heads up, big guy, and nails the kid in the head.
Yeah.
And she's like, he's blind. Like,
and doesn't help him either. She just is like, ooh, that's weird. He's down on the floor now. And his name's Little Timmy, and there's like Little Joey and Little Tom, and it's just, yeah.
So now we are at the estate distribution. Jenna happens to be there because randomly Ted has left Dreams Come True like 6 season tickets to the Bears.
Right.
And then they find out Joe. I wrote Joe. I guess that's his first name. Coop gets the team, but with the stipulation that they need to win the Denslow Cup, or the team reverts back to his wife of 3 months, Yvette. And so this is when we meet Mr. Kane, who owns the Dallas team, and he wants he wants Yvette to have the team so that then they have the majority and then they can start monetizing the National BASEketball League. And then we get this weird thing where it's like, because it's Ted recorded himself telling everyone what they get. And he's like, everyone can leave except for Joe.
I want to
Cooper.
talk to Coop. Yeah.
Yeah. And then no one leaves. And he's like, I really like this cream. Starts rubbing it on his nipples and singing, I'm too sexy. And then mentions the time that Cooper had crabs. And I'm just like,
again, it's joke after
why?
joke. It's like, if you don't like this one, you might like the next one. And that's what they did the whole time.
Yes. So where are we now? Then we get the laying carpet joke because now Yvette is with Mr. Kane because she's just
Right.
old dude hopping from one sugar daddy hopping from one old guy to the next. So they plan for Coop to never win. Then we get we're at another game. It's Cooper's turn to play, and he takes this giant wad of tobacco out of his mouth and hands it to Remer, who then puts it in his mouth. And it's gross.
I fell asleep at this point.
Oh, this makes sense. Yeah.
I'm out.
This is about where.
And then we are introduced to little Joey, who needs a kidney. He is a huge Cooper fan. And then we get a montage of them just spending time with Joey.
Because they say he's like, I want to hang out with the team.
Yes.
And since this team doesn't make any money.
Yeah, they go to the laundromat. They go and get a massage at a place that uses the word Oriental, which was upsetting.
Very.
And then they go to the bar and get little Joey drunk when he needs a new liver.
Mm-hmm. They're just doing tequila shots watching Jerry Springer.
Yeah. And then it's time for his liver operation. His levels are all over.
First we want to make fun of trans people too.
Oh, yes.
Before we do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there is a woman at the bar and she's making Isaac squeaks. He's into it. And it seems like even at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Still into it.
That's fantastic.
But they have to poke fun at the fact that either she looks a little more masculine or may potentially be trans.
Right.
So awesome. I hate that for you guys.
Yeah. Missing a lot.
Oh, it gets better or worse.
No.
However you choose to view it.
Worse.
And so they go to visit Joey after he gets out of surgery. This is when this scene goes on way too long.
It's so uncomfortable.
It's so
well, they show up to the first place. And this isn't a bad bit, right? Where they show up and the bed's empty that he was at. And so they're panicking. Like, oh no, I knew it. And then they're like, oh, he's moved to the next room. They're like, oh, okay. So they run and it's there's a door that says morgue. Like, oh no, like he says the same thing over again. I forget what it was specifically, and then they're like, no, gentlemen, this room. And then they go and he's in there. So you're like, oh, okay.
Oh God.
And
it has that feel of like Spaceballs and
or like Wayne's World where he shows up at the wrong chapel.
Right. Yeah.
So they sit on Joey's oxygen tube not once but twice. They pull the plug out of the monitor so it's beeping, so they think he's coding. So then they need to grab the paddles and shock him, but Squeaks is holding on to Joey, so he's getting shocked too, and they're upping the amperage. And really the only
very chaotic and anxiety inducing.
Yes. The only part I liked about this scene was, as I mentioned earlier, they were improvising some of the lines. So Remer says, Coop says something, and I can't remember what it is, but then Remer replies, I'm giving her all I got, Captain. And then Coop says, I love you, I always have. And so like,
love ya, always have.
So I do enjoy that moment, but that's the only moment in the hospital scene. FYI, Joey is fine.
Surprisingly.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
So they realize Mr. Kane realizes that he is not going to get through to Cooper. Like, Cooper has his morals and integrity when it comes to basketball, and he's like, no, this is for everyone.
Nothing else but to basketball and little children, definitely.
Yes. So Mr. King goes to Remer, and he's kind of like, hey, you created this sport too. Why was the team left to just Cooper? And kind of getting into Remer's head, like, you could be making millions. And so now Remer kind of has a chip on his shoulder. This is when we get anal probe night, and then we get like the lady dressed as a weird sexy alien in like a unibody suit.
Yeah.
And then Remer kind of turns the whole team against Cooper. They're all mad because they're like, essentially, we could have been making money off of this the whole time, and
Right.
he was the
They're
holdout.
pissed.
And Cooper does say it's not about money, it's about tradition, and then shows like all of the retired jock straps that are hung on the wall
From
the
5
city.
years of this like sport. Yeah.
Nasty.
This is where the scene happens where they're arguing.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting enough, I was like, oh, this happened before Dude, Where's My Car?
Yes.
And it is pretty much a knockoff of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dude fight, as it's referred to, and 21 of those dudes were so the word dude is spoken a total of 98 times throughout the movie, including the scene after the credits. I didn't watch that.
Missed it.
And 21 of these are during Coop and Remer's dude argument. So
it feels like they used dude a lot more in this movie than that.
They did. I agree. There was a lot of dudage happening.
So much dudage.
I think that the scene in Dude, Where's My Car is way funnier.
Yes.
It is. But listen, basketball had to walk before they could run. Or Dude, Where's My Car could run.
And that's what this movie should have been. Like, the level of ridiculousness that Dude, Where's My Car is, but the levity and the comedic timing of Dude, Where's My Car. That's what we needed in basketball.
I just feel like Ashton Kutcher and
Sean William
Scott did such a good job. They playing that innocence.
Mm-hmm.
I think Remer, his character is just like a sleazeball, and he embraces it. But it's hard for me to believe like Cooper is just like this man with a heart kind of vibes. Sure. I feel like they should have just doubled down on both of them kind of being shitheads.
Because he was a shithead in the beginning.
Yeah.
And nothing like,
He wanted to fuck Brittany.
And they called Squeaks a little bitch the whole time. And it's like, they should have kept that up, and it changed somewhere.
Yeah. Somewhere someone was like, oh, he has to be a decent human being.
He has to have redeeming qualities.
So now Jenna is crying because funding has been cut for her foundation. I don't remember how it was cut, but Mr. Kane had something to do with it.
Right, because he knew 6 people on the board, I think is what he said. And this was one part where she comes and she's like, I didn't mean to ruin your game. It's like, then why are you here?
Yeah. Tell us afterwards, babe.
Right.
Anyway, that's funny.
And then I
didn't take notes during this part.
I wrote bigger titties, and it was something about the magazine, but I can't remember.
So he was telling Remer, or no, so the guy comes. Also, was this during no, that was a different scene. The guy's like, this is how you can save your girlfriend's thing, and shows him the magazine, and he's like, you want me to get bigger titties? And he's like, no, that other page. And it was a sports line of, clothing line. Yeah.
Which I was like, okay, cool, just sell shit with the Beers logo on it. But like, it seems like it's a whole fashion line that has nothing really to do with the
anything.
team. Yeah.
It's just Remer too that benefits from this.
But I don't understand. So because they said the caveat is you can do it because
charity.
All the proceeds will go to charity. But then how does Remer get rich? Does like people assume he's like philanthropic, and so then they start giving him like modeling deals and advertisement deals? That is a very gray area of the movie for me. Because it's the only
gray area. Really.
It really is. Otherwise, a very solid movie for your favorite sports movie of all time.
Right. Yeah. Danielle, you don't remember this part, right?
slip my brain again. Remind me, refresh my memory.
So then it's just Remer getting a larger and larger head, wearing giant ass gold chains. He has an entertainment lawyer, much internal arguing between him and Cooper spending more time with Jenna, blah, blah, blah.
There was a fourth wall breaking there too, where they did, I guess you consider that, but he was just like, dude, you're going to be in a Hollywood movie? You sell out? And they kind of just like turned their head a little bit because I guess like South Park fans were pissed at them for like doing movies as sellouts. So they were like,
Sell out.
That's my fun fact for the day.
Sell out. Yet another song by Real Big Fish. So now, and the whole time is like Jenna is obviously into Cooper and Cooper is into Jenna. But the whole time Remer is like acting oblivious, like he thinks she's into him.
It's so weird. I don't like it.
Weird.
It's like a subplot of the movie that they just needed to not have in there.
But... Yeah, right.
But then Remer is making out with the Playmate of the Year.
Victoria Silvstedt Playmate of the Year.
Which then
that's a funny joke too.
Which is her film debut, by the way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was she in
Out Cold?
Classic Out Cold?
Right?
She was.
It just keeps getting better.
She plays the stepsister.
Yeah.
I love that movie, and Danielle
that
is
movie's
dreading the day.
What? It is so good. I love Out Cold.
Oh.
Dude.
Who's doing that movie with us?
I think Nick. Can you imagine Nick and
So
Ron
good.
doing Out Cold with us?
I'm a
it
drink.
Would be perfection.
Out Cold is a classic.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's Nick. I'll look. You keep on going. Let's get through this.
On the yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. Is like there's so many little parts of this movie that you're like, oh yeah, and this happened, and this happened, because it was just fucking firing at you.
So now Mr. Kane is in the locker room talking to them how the product line is being made by children in Calcutta. And so it's a sweatshop situation. He has pictures and essentially he's blackmailing them to lose the rest of their game so Yvette can absorb the team. But during the scene, they are naked and the penises are like, I'm not even exaggerating, Danielle. They're like 6 feet long.
Yeah.
That they keep showing. Yeah. I'm like, what? Why?
Well, they show them once.
What is that
jokes?
What is that fascination? Like, first and foremost, I'm gonna say another PSA. Men. Yes, a certain size penis matters to an extent, but I don't want a fucking leg in my vagina. It's not what I'm wishing for. And to be honest, if you really want to pleasure a woman, it's less to do about your penis and what you're doing with your tongue. I'm just and let you know. Continue.
So we get ridiculously large dongs, as I wrote in my notes.
I think this scene was just to make Yasmine Bleeth say like what she had to say in her lines, which were things like, what did she say? Like, well endowed, big penis. I don't know. But she just like, oh, and like ran off.
And that
But-
was her first scene that she shot.
Yeah.
That scene.
I saw that too.
I
Yeah.
feel bad. I mean, to think that you had a better job situation with Baywatch. Could you imagine?
Crazy.
Baywatch was the better job experience.
That's
Oof.
crazy.
So now Cooper is going to make things right in the world because Jenna knows about the sweatshop pictures, and she's like, they're going to shut down the organization, all the children. And so Cooper flies to Calcutta, and this is the scene that made me absolutely horrified.
I'm sorry. What? He flies to Calcutta,
Yeah.
India,
Huh?
Yes.
to do what?
I don't remember this part. I said
I
this to Gwen
don't
before.
either.
I was like, I watched this. I was like, I don't remember him going to Calcutta.
I don't either. So this is when we get him in a Volkswagen Beetle, Danielle. So if you need to do a part 2, there's a Volkswagen Beetle in this movie.
Okay.
Singing, like he's listening to a song on the radio that's singing about his life, but Matt was the one, or Trey was the one who recorded the song.
Oh,
So
this is
he's-
before he went, right?
Yeah. So he's
Yeah,
driving
yeah.
to the airport at this
Which
point.
is a great song.
It's really funny.
It's really good.
And then he flies to Calcutta. Meanwhile, there's unsolved mysteries happening, and they're
Mhm.
like, Cooper has disappeared. Where is he gone? And then it's like a nosy neighbor said he got in his car with a ticket to Calcutta, but we don't know where he is. Like
Yeah.
it kept like referring to that.
And they said like a neighbor and gave her name, and then it's like, but who wishes to be remain anonymous? And you're like, okay. So it's
And
just
so-
constant little jokes, like any
Yeah.
way to make things like. Anyway, yeah, it was, and then the hanging like scene
Yes.
was pretty weird and awkward, but
Yeah. And then they show him in Calcutta doing this honorable thing by stopping the sweatshop. And they're like, you need a hard hat, Danielle. The hard hats were turbans,
yellow hard hat.
yellow turban hard hats. And I was like, for what little redeeming qualities this movie had, after that, I was like, okay, I'm out. Like, I can't. I can't. And I did contemplate turning this movie off, but I did not. I'm glad I stuck it through since my teammate over here.
I was ill.
From the movie, yeah, I get that.
I was physically ill.
And so now the team is really worried. They miss Cooper because Remer's gotten like a huge head. He walks in with like a crown, like the Crown Royal crown.
Yeah.
Like
I love
that's
it.
what it looks like. And so he's trying to reassure everyone, and they're cheering behind him, but it's because Cooper has returned and restored, like righted all the wrongs and gave meaningful jobs to adults in Calcutta. And so there's no children working in the sweatshop anymore. And now they lose the game at first. Is it because like they lost their mojo? I don't remember.
So that was the other thing too. It's like they just were doing really bad,
Yeah.
and they were down 17-0 in the 7th inning, and then for the 7th inning stretch, they had the event. Which
Please
apparently-
describe the event,
Event.
Ron.
Oh my god, it was what was it? They were to our Caribbean brothers to the south. Isn't that what they said? They were like,
What?
it was, yeah.
While
Oh
they
yeah,
played Deo.
yeah. And it was this giant like set that was constructed, and it was the, what do they call it, the Maka Waka Board of Trust or
Yes.
something.
And it was like a pivot scale.
Yeah,
I think
and it
y'all
was-
are just making shit up now.
Right?
Girl.
I think they did too. And it was, they made this huge set with like a rainforest kind of vibe to it, and there
What?
was like, it was
The
like it was on a different,
colonizers
yeah, the
on one
colonizers
end.
versus the, which again was amazing. This part we were like, okay, this is cool. But it was
Mhm.
showing the like their oppressors, and they were dressed up as the, anyway. And then Squeaks was in a giant pineapple, and they're on this board, so Coop and Remer start fighting, and they have these like tiki torches that they like throw the fire off, and they start fighting each other. And then
So
Squeaks.
is this where the white supremacists got the ideas about tiki torches? Was for
Maybe.
basketball?
Probably. Yeah. It was. And so then Squeaks gets so mad and starts yelling at them. Like, and he has this monologue that was really good. Talking about like, and he starts crying, and he's in this pineapple suit, and he's just like, I like, it makes me so sad because the reason we started this, it was just a bunch of guys hanging out together and blah, blah, and what we stood for. And he does this whole monologue about how they've changed and they need to get it together. And then what happens? Then they slingshot him.
Yeah, he flips across the stadium because it's like a giant seesaw. And then Coop and Remer apologize to each other, make up, and make out.
Which was their idea, Trey Parker and Matt
Yes.
Stone.
Full on, like, awkward, like, wrapping tongues around each other and licking each other's faces.
Yes.
Hey, not mad at it.
No, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Gwen even said, we were watching it, she was like, I was like, oh, are they gonna go for it? They're gonna go for it. Awesome. I was like, yeah, good for them. And they didn't do like a no homo joke, which you would expect them to do. They just did it, and that was it.
I think they've been wanting to make out with each other, or maybe they do it on the regular. Who knows?
Possibly.
Maybe.
I love friends that could show their love for each other.
So meanwhile, Jenna was mad at Coop, but she found out that he went and stopped the sweatshops. So she
is this? I can't even.
It gets insane.
The sweatshops.
Hold on, Danielle. It gets better because they get into a cab that is driven by Dale Earnhardt.
Junior or senior?
Senior.
Yeah.
Lord Jesus.
There's just cameo after cameo in this movie. That's what their
reason.
$25 million budget was.
Yes.
Cameos.
And so it's the last play of the game, and Coop goes to make his shot, and his lazy boy basketball falls apart. Like, you can see it's all like duct taped off, and it's shit the bed. And so he's panicking. He's feeling the other balls bouncing him. Nothing feels right. And then Joey shows up with his new liver and a Barcalounger ball that Jenna helped him make. And so he's like, use my ball.
First and foremost, I just want to say those fucking chairs are expensive as fuck. And y'all are just ripping them apart like they're nothing.
They didn't really, you had to like really pay attention to what it was too. I'm surprised they didn't make that the bigger joke and like show it saying Barcalounger. Like, it was like hidden and you had to know to like look for it.
And so, of course, it's a very suspenseful, like, ball bouncing out. Someone hits it, it bounces over.
Very similar to what happened in the beginning of the movie.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then Coop does an behind his head toss, Hail Mary, and
like,
he makes it in.
Slow motion. Yeah.
Yes. And so the Bears win. And so he gets to keep the team. Him and Jenna finally kiss. Squeaks goes over to his woman, and she's bouncing him up and down like he must have been on a trampoline, but she's just like has him around the waist and is like bouncing him up and down. I thought that was pretty funny too. And then Reggie Jackson shows up.
This is like
him.
A dream someone has when they're high.
But I love this scene because Reggie Jackson's like, here's your ball, man. Don't let it out of your sight. Like, it's gonna mean a lot to you.
The one that popped,
yeah. And so he's like, I have 2 out of my 3 home runs in my last game. Some kid took my last
little shithead kid. He's like...
And Coop's just like, oh, I don't know anything about that, because Coop was the kid. And then Reggie was like, oh, and Coop, And Cooper turns around and goes, I don't have your fucking ball. And I was like, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then I don't even remember what Reggie Jackson said. Probably some bullshit encouragement stuff. And then the movie ends. Remer squirts milk in the eye of Baxter Kane because he's a big fat loser. And Remer is now with Yvette for some reason. Question mark.
There were the two people left.
That's true.
You know, that they're like, oh, we might as well make out. Yeah.
And then the very last scene is them taking a rollerblading lap around the arena with the Denslow Cup, and Squeaks is sitting on top, but then they go under the hoop and then he gets knocked off. And that is BASEketball.
Yay!
We're done.
By the way, I did find the end credits.
Oh,
What was after it?
What is it?
And it is Al Michaels and Bob Costas.
Oh.
Dude.
They're just doing.
Are they kissing again?
No, they pull it down like they. It was like they were gonna kiss, and then they pulled a thing down, and that was it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, David Zucker, who then had a first look deal with Universal, pitched the idea of a lowbrow comedy about a game he invented. So he actually invented this game, BASEketball is Real, and played in the 1980s. Zucker had previously attempted to adapt the idea to a TV series without success. And in this pilot episode that was filmed, starred Chris Rock, but it did not materialize into a series. Interesting. I don't want to see it, but I'm interested to know how that went. Yeah.
Gwen kind of Gwen kind of pointed out in the last scene where they play the game, she's like, this game's boring. And I was like, yeah it's really boring. I mean, well, hold on a second.
Let's not go that far.
It puts me to sleep every time.
It's like free throws. It's literally like they're shooting free throws all over, and like free throws are boring.
Yeah,
that too.
So
that too. Yeah. Well, they did the sports.
They did. This was Robert Vaughn's 100th film. What a banner film to do for your 100th.
Wow.
Right? You can get that framed.
And it was Kelly Monaco and Courtney Ford's film debut, as well as Victoria, like we said. I had to say this because Kelly Monaco is my bitch from General Hospital. What's up? Bop, bop, bop. Got to talk about my soap stars.
Well, in Courtney Ford, I was like, where do I know her from? She was on Dexter. She played Trinity's daughter. Spoiler alert. Like we said, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar guest starred in Airplane and then had a cameo in BASEketball.
That was actually a fantastic scene too, where it was like his shoes and something else, and then him. Like, did you see that? And then he clocks out afterwards. It was good stuff.
And apparently Zucker had created BASEketball in the 80s.
Sure he did.
Cool.
Did you all notice? I'm sure Danielle did. There was a part where I think they were talking about how it. I think it was the Denslow Cup where they're talking about how it became this like global phenomenon, even though that some people, whatever. But they were showing the people in the booths, and I could have sworn, I'm like 99% sure that Ken Jeong is in there.
Really?
What?
But it is such a it was before he was anything. Like, I'm sure it was him just as an extra. And I wonder if I could find that information somewhere.
Interesting.
Because I'm like, I stopped it and I'm like, I mean, look, I don't want this to come off terribly, but I'm pretty sure that's it. Like, I was like, I don't know what's like, I'm sure he's not credited for it.
Right.
But because it is like passing people and you see him. So I wonder if there's any way, but that's the last thing I've got. Otherwise we basically hit all my notes.
Let's see if there's anything else.
I wrote down chickens everywhere at one point. Also, when Yasmine Bleeth was reading that book, The Duality of Women, and she's like talks about it for a minute, and like both Gwen and I was like, I don't get this joke at all.
Yeah.
Is this even is this just like a, it was like the only couple lines in the movie that didn't make any sense to me.
Well, for their roles in the film, Yasmine and Jenny were both nominated for Golden Raspberry Awards in 1998 for the Worst Actress and the Worst Supporting Actress Awards.
Wow.
However, they lost to the Spice Girls and to Maria I don't know how to say her last name, from Godzilla. Yeah.
They were robbed.
They were. They really were. And the same bowl presented as the championship trophy for the driveway game was an element of the Denslow Cup trophy presented to the champions when the game went professional in real life. There was real basketball happening after this movie because we, the Americans, love good things.
And then the scene where Joey asked Coop to hit a home run for him on the night of his liver operation is inspired by a real-life event in which Babe Ruth visited a sick child in the hospital and promised to hit 2 home runs for him.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Well, before we get into our ratings, Ron, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on social and check you out?
You can follow me on Instagram at BASEketball lover. No, ADHD_Ron on Instagram. On TikTok, I'm ADHD Coach Ron. You can go to my website at ADHDcoachron.com. I'm on Threads as ADHD_Ron. And yeah, that's my stuff.
Nice. And don't forget to check us out at No More Late Fees on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and Threads. And we're going to start with you, Ron. What is your present day rating of BASEketball now that you rewatched it?
What were the bottom 2 options again?
Same day rental and 2-day rental. Yeah.
That's the last one I compare. So like the bottom of the barrel is
same day rental.
I'm going to go same day rental.
Fair. Danielle?
Yeah, that I don't even think I have to. I wish I could put never seen, but same day rental it is. Same day rental. I never want to see this movie again.
You didn't even see the whole movie.
I saw too much.
For me, it is a would buy again for the soundtrack and a same day rental for.
You were trying to give a bitch a heart attack. I was about to come through this motherfucking screen if you said would buy again, Jackie.
I just think about how I've watched it 2 times in the last week.
You're a trooper.
You know what, Ron? That's 2 more times than I've ever seen it.
I look at it as like my rating now is I'm never gonna watch this movie again unless I'm paid to. Like if there's like a way, like that's about it.
Watch BASEketball on a loop for 24 hours for like $1,000.
Yeah,
I think our agents and our military should look into using this as torture.
Yeah,
I think it would work.
Could be.
Ooh.
Well, if you have a deep love for BASEketball, hit us up at our quick drop 909601 and MLF 9096016653 and leave your opinions. Tell us your favorite jokes. Yeah. You can also twat us at the Twitters while it's still there, hem us at the Threads, or leave a message on our Spotify for Podcasters account, and you could be featured on a future episode.
And this week we have a special birthday shout out to our good friend Atiba and Patreon bestie. We hope you have a wonderful day. We love you so much. Thank you for all of your support.
Yeah.
Oh, that's still me. Join us next week as we celebrate the 25th anniversary of Ever After. And thank you, Ron.
Yeah, thank you guys.
You picked up the slack for me slacking off.
Oh, you're good. You guys are fun. I'm glad I could finally do this. This was a blast.
Yeah,
we
it
can't
was
wait
so
to
much
have you
fun.
back on.
We're out
Yay.
cold.
And I promise I'll be better next
Yeah,
time.
I'm cold.
And as always, be kind and rewind.